Hello Algebra 2 class. For today's classwork, we will continue on the concept of the reciprocal trigonometric functions, and then we will be graphing a tangent function as well as a cotangent function. Alright, so number one, it says find the exact value of secant of negative 5 pi over 3. So for secant, this is one of the reciprocal trigonometric functions. So let's review that really quick. We already know about sine theta, cosine theta, and tangent theta. Tangent theta namely being sine theta over cosine theta. Well, we now know the reciprocal definitions. So cosecant of theta is simply 1 over sine theta. Secant theta is 1 over cosine theta, and cotangent theta is 1 over tangent theta, as the name implies, cotangent. So therefore it is cosine over sine rather than sine over cosine. And as you can see, all of these definitions are defined in terms of sine and cosine. And now why is that important? Because we know how to find sine and cosine values using our unit circle. Alright, so let's go back to the question. The question asks us specifically, what is secant of negative 5 pi over 3? So, secant is a reciprocal trigonometric function, and it is a reciprocal of cosine. So if I rewrite this as this fraction, this becomes much easier to solve since I know how to find cosine values. So let's find the cosine value using our unit circle. This is a negative, so therefore it is going backwards. So instead of going counterclockwise, we will go clockwise. So 0, negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, and negative 2 pi. To better gauge exactly where this radian measure is, I'm simply going to change this in terms of a denominator of 6. So negative pi over 2 is the same thing as negative 3 pi over 6. This is going to be the same thing as negative 6 pi over 6. This is the same thing as negative 9 pi over 6. And this is the same thing as negative 12 pi over 6, which then helps me gauge that the radian measure, negative 10 pi over 6, or namely negative 5 pi over 3, is between negative 9 pi over 6 and negative 10 pi over 6. So it's here. And since the difference between negative 10 pi over 6 and negative 12 pi over 6 is 2 pi over 6, we know that this reference angle is 2 pi over 6, namely pi over 3. And that will give us a very nice special right triangle, one of 60 degrees. Now, I'm going to reference the quick unit circle method to get our values really quickly. So this is the point I want, but in order to get this point, I'm just going to use the method that we had used before to find these coordinates in a much faster manner than just using right triangles. So we know that the x coordinate here is going to be, or sorry, let me start with the y coordinate. Y coordinate here is 0, then it goes to 1, 2, 3. And up here, my y coordinate is 1. I'm going to divide everything by 2. And this, oops, sorry, I should have said that was 4. 4 divided by 2. And then I'm going to square root the top. So square root, square root, square root, square root, which then gives us a total of 1, which is why I wrote 1 in the beginning. We could have done the same thing for here and gotten 0. Now I'm just reviewing this with you. You don't have to do it this way, just to do it really quickly. Square root of 1 is obviously 1. And to get the other value, we're going to do the exact same thing the other way. So there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm not going to finish this process because you already know how to do it. And that was just to help us find out that this, which is square root of 1 over 2, which is just 1 over 2, gives me this value, or give this point. Alright, so enough of reviewing what we've already studied in the past. So now that I know my point, cosine is going to go reference the x value. So going back to the original question, that means I get 1 over 1 over 2, which basically is the same thing as 1 over 1 over 1 over 2, or in other words, you're just flipping over 1 over 2. So you get 2 as your answer. Alright, let's go to number 2. Let's find another reciprocal trigonometric value. Cotangent of 5 pi. So cotangent of 5 pi is the same thing as 1 over tangent of 5 pi. Again, the name cotangent implies that it has a relationship with tangent. And since tangent is sine over cosine, cotangent then is cosine over sine. Alright, this is a much quicker question. So we know this is going to be 0. If we go one full circle, we get 2 pi. Another full circle, we get 4 pi. And we're not going to go full circle, we just want to go pi, which is another 180 degrees, or half of a circle. So we end right here. We know this point on a unit circle because a unit circle has a radius of 1. And since it's in the negative x-axis, we know this point is going to be negative 1, comma 0. So my cosine value is negative 1, my sine value is 0, so therefore this value is undefined. And why is it undefined? Well, we've discussed in a previous video where both tangent and cotangent have undefined values for which you see an asymptote, a vertical asymptote on their graph. Alright, see you in part 2.